This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, it's another fabulous publishing day, and with us today is someone who's been with us before. He is on the board of AuthorU, and what I love about Tom Campbell is he always has an opinion, and he's willing to share it that is direct, to the point, and is realistic when it comes to both publishing and printing. He's the VP of Sales for King Printing and Audi Books based in Massachusetts. And he's always one of the go-to people when I try to do a reality check with some of the things, the rumors I hear about printing or changes, and sometimes even about who's doing what in publishing today. So, Tom, welcome back to AuthorU, your guide to book publishing.
Hey, Judith, thanks for having me again and again and again.
Well, there you go. So, so here we are. We're in the middle of the summer of 2017. What kind of things have you seen change this year?
You know, what I've seen change probably more than anything else is an uptick, a significant uptick in independent publishers coming in with their books. All different types. Big run on children's books right now. People are doing a lot of children's books. You know, some novels, a lot of nonfiction. So while I think probably the large publishers are down with titles because they're not really sure what's going to sell, independent publishing is as strong as I've seen it, and I think it will continue to grow as more and more printing companies try to circle around and grab some of that business.
Well, the data was coming out that some of the big publishers were going to try to create, and I'm not sure how they're going to do it. They're going to do it underneath their own umbrella, or if they're going to reach out to, I hope not, Author Solutions, to create their own little self-publishing independent arms. Have you heard anything more about that?
No, not really. And I've seen, in some cases where that was a nice idea for, large publishing houses. I mean, if you take a look at Author House and some of the other, let's call them vanity presses, some publishers actually acquired some of the assets of those and titles of those. But, you find out pretty quickly that a lot of the books that are in the vanity press space and, quite frankly, in the independent space, the authors don't have the skill set to sell their books. And as you know,
mm-hmm.
I mean, selling the books and, creating demand is part of the job. And so, they end up buying these assets and these titles, but the people are just not going to, do the heavy lifting and promote them.
I wrote a blog last month for Joel Friedlander. I do one once a month for his book designer. And I did it actually on author and book marketing fatigue. And it really was about, one of my lines was, what were you thinking? What were you thinking that it was going to be easy? What were you thinking that you could put your book up on Amazon and the flock would just drive to it? What were you thinking that bookstores would be clamoring to bring you in your book? I mean, really, what were you thinking without getting behind and creating that demand? What were you thinking? And that's the big problem. I mean, doing the book's the easy stuff. And I know that those of you who have been writing for years, and I have one author who has been writing his book for over 20 years. And writing for years, you think that's the really hard part. No, it's once you have the book in hand, that's the hard part. That's where the real work goes into play.
Exactly.
So
and I think too, to that point, and you asked, what's changed. In another area, I've really, when you take a look at where you're going to spend your money, or where the largest expense is, it is in getting the book designed, and then the other is marketing. And the printing cost is the least expense in the whole circle of doing this. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I've really, a lot of people try to do it on the cheap. They try to get their kids to help them develop their files and do that kind of stuff. And, what I'm trying to do and push today is that, people go to Nick at NZ Graphics and get their books professionally put together, because, the two most important things, we're going to print whatever it is you're going to have. Mm-hmm. But if it's not professionally put together and then you don't have a marketing plan, you're doomed for failure.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of teaching my How to Write a Book in 4 Weeks course. And those of you who are listening in, we do it online as well. We do it in person in our offices in Denver, Colorado. But the reality is, I don't expect you to have a completed polish ready to go to the printer book in 4 weeks. My goal is to get you going in it so you can get into the draft form. Then all the fine tuning comes into play. But it's getting it going. And I actually had Nick on last night to talk about design and all that. And I should say that there's 3 designers that I really favor. One is Nick Salinger of NZ Graphics. The other is Rebecca Finkel of F&P Design, who also does stellar work, and Michelle DeFlippo of 1106 Design. All of those people have got, between the 3 of them, they probably have over maybe 80 years of experience from dealing with laying out a book the old-fashioned way, letter by letter, the way it used to be done, to really knowing the art of design. And I'm struggling right now, Tom, with someone who came to my Judith Browell's Book Publishing Unplugged in June, and he sent up his manuscript to me that he had been working and designed, and he's had content editors in it. And I immediately want to start gutting it, taking it apart, and I want to tell all of you, do not do this yourself. It is a disaster. You really, please pay the money to get a competent, qualified book designer in play instead of your friends. So that's my opinion.
No, I think it's a valid opinion, because when you come to somebody like us and you've got, here are the files, and then you start proofing them, and, they're particularly with the children's books, mm-hmm. when they don't have bleeds and they're not in CMYK and they're in RGB, and, and then you sit with the customer and say, okay, let me tell you what's wrong with this. And they kind of look at you glassy-eyed, and they have no clue about what you're talking about. And so it doesn't matter if it's me or any of the other printers in the flock. It's time and it's money, and it's also, once you start proofing this stuff, mm-hmm. and it starts not coming out quite right, as you well know, you're going to pay for multiple proofs. And here you are, where you're just you're doing a book that's maybe worth to the end customer $1,000 to print, and you've already run up $500 in proofs because you can't get it right. So, take it to somebody.
Yeah, and that's exactly why you need those designers who know. I don't expect my authors to understand all the jargon. Yep. And the programming side. Heck, I don't. And I don't need to, because that's why I hire people who know what they're doing. So when it gets to the Tom Campbells of the world, that it's ready to go. It's ready to go. The proof comes to you. You get one final chance. And that, by the way, we need to say this about proofs, Tom. This does not mean you're rewriting people. You don't rewrite. You do fine tweaking and tuning. If you catch those oddball typos that just kept slipping through, or you see something that got dropped or missed, or maybe, sometimes weird stuff does happen. But I remember in the old days, Tom Fantasy, one time it came back. I can't remember who it was Simon & Schuster. And I swore to God, someone had dropped it and reassembled it, just shuffled it and sent it to me. Because I went berserk when it came to me. And that's in the old days when we called it the blue lines.
Yep.
So, but this is your proof is not your rewrite, because you're done. You're just going through and you're doing scanning. Don't say, here's the problem. All of us are always going to tweak and rewrite a little bit. And that you have to really realize, is this good enough? And remember, your book is for your buyer. It's for your buyer. Does it satisfy their need? Does it entertain them? Does it give them solutions? Do you have all the essential elements there? Is it clear? Is it succinct? Or are you thinking, well, if I use this word, it might have been a little bit better. It's more my favorite word. Stop it. Stop it. This is where we see a lot of trouble. Isn't that right, Tom?
Yeah, you and I have been down this road a couple of times with a couple of your authors, and
Yes.
and I've made the phone call to you, I think, let's see, 6 o'clock my time in the morning, 3 o'clock your time, and I've said, we need to stop this.
You actually have done that to me. And I gladly pick up the phone and do that, because and sometimes, from the Book Shepherd, I don't know when all of a sudden they realize, they can talk. And one of the great things about Tom Campbell at King Printing is that he will talk to you. We had actually a situation with another printer that the customer walked and left them and moved to King because of the customer service side. And that's customer service is really essential. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about what to expect when you're expecting at a printer. What kind of questions should you have? Or maybe you should have them answered before you even go to a printer. But what to expect when you're expecting, so you make it efficient and it runs smooth. This is Judith Briles.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Is there a book in you or another? AuthorU will show you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you'll find a supportive and brainstorming community that's connected and creative no matter where you live. AuthorU brings in national experts for its book camps and annual author extravaganza held each May. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through AuthorU's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. The Resource, its online book publishing news magazine, is content heavy and it's free. If you want to create a book that has pizzazz, punch, and panache, AuthorU is for you. If you're a hobbyist or a casual author, it's not. Join AuthorU today through its website at AuthorU.org. Follow AuthorU on Twitter at AuthorU and on Facebook at AuthorU, where timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted daily. AuthorU, where the author goes to become seriously successful.
First impressions are everything in the world of book publishing. Whether your book is an ebook, a print version, or both, your book cover needs to pop, sizzle, and sparkle to immediately capture the attention of your audience. And your book's interior needs to be just as dynamic and reflect the professionalism your readers demand. Nick Salinger of NZ Graphics has won numerous national and international book awards for his cover designs and interior layouts. With over 20 years of experience in graphic design, he knows what it takes to create award-winning books and the many promotional pieces that authors need, such as posters, banners, postcards, one-sheets, business cards, logos, and more. Visit ncgraphics.com and see what authors and publishers have to say about their award-winning books and how NZ Graphics can make your book the success it was meant to be. That's nzgraphics.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right, today is all about printing your masterpiece, your baby, that it has the best cover on it. Now, I'm not talking about the design. We want that too. But we want the presentation, the feel, the look, the professionalism. With us is Tom Campbell. He's the Vice President of Sales and Publishing for King Printing. And he's one of my go-to people for questions. And we always get bids from him for our clients. And that it doesn't mean everything always goes to them, because sometimes it's better to, sometimes we have a bigger run that might not be the right fit for him. So Tom, let's talk about runs. Let's talk about, can you get into cost, because a lot of authors don't get the cost. And I had a situation where one of my clients had really thought, okay, so for this run, instead of making 2,000 copies, I think I'll do print on demand. I said, fine, let's look at the options. And he wanted to do both a hardback and a paper version of his book. And he loaded them all up, and he couldn't compute, he couldn't calculate in his head that how could he have his book priced at whatever his hardback was priced, and this was with the dust jacket, that he was going to lose $1.43 for every book that got sold. I mean, a lot of people don't get that when you buy one book or 10 books at a time, there is a much higher price point versus if you bought 500 at a time. So let's jump on that.
What happens in the book printing world is that, none of us, we all acquire our cover materials from the various distributors that exist out there. And so, with linen finishes and synthetic leather type finishes, different colors, they come with a broad range of colors. Let's talk about hardback specifically. The problem is that, whoever's manufacturing the book has to go out and buy that type of cover material to a specific size, and that size depends upon how many pages are in the book. So, it's like anything else. You're going to have to buy a specific size, and then the manufacturers of these materials usually have minimums. So, if you're trying to do one book at a time or two books at a time, and you've picked a color and a finish and whatever, whoever the manufacturer is going to have to buy that material. And, you don't get to buy like 2 pieces or 3 pieces. You got to buy, like 50 or 100 sheets. And so that's going to get factored into the cost of the book. Then on top of it, it's different sizes because you have different size materials for smaller and larger page count books. Then the other thing is that, you have to create, if it's a hardback book and it's going to have an imprint on the spine, then you have to create a die for that. So all of those things have their own cost. Now, if you're doing 500 books, yeah, you can spread those costs across all of the books that you're going to print, 500 or 1,000. That's why you and I, a lot of times, will do split runs. If you don't know what's going to go, let's do 250 hardcover, 500 softcover, Then what we can do is run common text, and you can spread those costs out across quantity. But it will never, it's never going to work in the POD range like the paperback books do. And the other thing, too, about POD is with most of the POD suppliers, you are tied to a specific size. Those are all the standard sizes, 5.5, 8.5, 6 by 9, 7 by 10, 8.5 by 11. A lot of people have stranger sizes, and so they're not going to be able to do those. They're just not going to do them. And so, you've got to play into that standard piece. Now, if all you're going to sell is one book, do it that way. But, if you're really in the book selling business and you're going to turn this into something that you're going to try and make money at, as you all know, you've got to run more books than that.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially if you're doing even converting, because a lot of people who write books, especially nonfiction books, you can pull nuggets out and make really some nifty little gift books. Gift books have different sizes. And you'll see a lot of square books. I mean, you go into any store and really start looking over. And that's where I like to send authors to bookstores, real bookstores, and really look at the different varieties. I was in Tattered Cover here in Denver because one of our authors had a book signing last weekend. And I was amazed. This little teeny book. I'm telling you, Tom, it must have been, if it was 2 by 3, I would have been amazed. 2 by 3. Okay. Little teeny book with Zenny ideas, Zenny thoughts. It's kind of like, the feel good type of thoughts. And that thing was selling for $8.95. This little teeny thing. Paper. No hardback. It's just a paper book.
Yep.
And I don't know the components of that, but you can make that. So you can't do those print on demand. But actually, when you go in and get a cost run for $500 or even $1,000, you will be surprised how inexpensive that is per unit. And that's what you really have to weigh out, because when I normally go out and get a print bid, I will ask for, once in a while someone says, would you just ask for $250, see what $250, but usually it's $500, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000. And we can look and do a comparison. And it's always amusing to me, the response when the author sees, geez, I could get 2,000 copies of these for basically what the cost of 1,500 would be regularly. And I said, yeah. So here's the game plan. What's your game plan? How are you going to move these? Can you make special offers? Can you bundle? Can you, let's start doing some brainstorming, because economically it makes sense to get more. But I don't want you also to sit with thousands of copies of books in your garage gathering cobwebs. You got to have a plan. So I think that's what's important.
Well, yeah, you got to have a plan, and the reason that you go to a bookstore, and of course this is not a new phenomenon, because you and I both went to the same class. Unfortunately, he's no longer alive, but part of Dan Pointer's deal in the self-publishing manual was that you were to go to the bookstore as your homework and select books that you liked. And paper stocks you liked, and incorporate those into the model in your binder when you were developing your plan. So and to be honest with you, I have a lot of bookstore owners here that I'm familiar with, and they go crazy if you pick something that's a non-standard size. The bookstore is just like a grocery store. Bread has a section, and if you develop a size that's kind of crazy, the bookstore guys will say, "Nah, I don't want to sell that book if it's oversized or whatever," because shelf space is at a premium. And so bookstore guys will say, "I'm here to sell books. I'm not here to display your book." And so,
And that's what I think, Tom. A lot of authors think their book will be on display. Face out, it's on display. And, I've experienced in the past a lot of my books being positioned face out, which was lovely, from a bookstore owner. But the reality is most of them are going to be spine out. And if you're, if their bookshelves are designed for the 5x8 up to the 6x9, more in the standard realm, and all of a sudden you decide, no, I really want to have a 12-inch tall book, it's not going to work.
Right.
And I think that's what Tom is saying. You really need to do that. Now, if you're not selling in a bookstore, if that's not your game plan, which I actually come from that model, that there are alternative ways to do this, is that, you've got much more license for your own uniqueness of what you do. And gift books always do have variables. And that's where I kind of I love some of the square books I see, which are not real typical in your print-on-demand area.
Yeah, I think that's okay. Whether 8.5 by 8.5 or square books or things like that. But you want to be in the same range as, say, an 8.5 by 11. A lot of people that come to us and say, we'd like to do a 9 by 12. Well, now we're outside the parent size sheet, so you're going to go to a different size sheet, or you're going to have less pages that you're going to be able to print on a sheet. So there's a premium for going big. If you always stay within the 8.5 by 11 and go smaller, then you're going to be okay.
Exactly. It makes it easier. And who wants that big of a book? I mean, are we talking a coffee table book? That's a different animal that you're going into. But if you're talking children's book, what are the standard sizes for kids' books? Is there a standard size, something like that, Tom?
It runs 8.5 by 11, 8.5 by 8.5, and those are pretty standard sizes. The oblongs are just you're flipping it over. Squares you don't have to worry about. But that's as long as you stay within those size ranges, then you're gonna fit with everything that's there. But then, to your point about every once in a while, particularly on covers, you get people that want to do some kind of a gold foil, or they want to do embossing, or all that stuff is expensive. And so the real question on the first book is developing, is there a demand for your book? And I hate to say this, but a lot of people, as we go through this, I go, will the end customer appreciate the extra expense that you're putting into this cover? And the answer is probably no. So, that's where you try and get them to go with standard,
Got it.
books.
Right, we'll be right back. And it's AuthorU, your guide to book publishing.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Want to publish like a pro today? Well, then take a look at Ingramspark, the only publishing platform that offers print and ebook services through a single source. Upload, edit, and manage titles all in one place. Take more control of printing costs with print on demand, and reach even more readers through one of the world's most extensive distribution networks. Built by independent publishers for independent publishers, Ingramspark has everything you need to maximize your book's potential: color printing, ebook distribution, print on demand, global reach, and more. Start publishing with Ingramspark today and see just how far your titles will go tomorrow. That's Ingramspark.com.
Many of us have dreamed of writing a book.
Some of us even have.
Then the hard work starts.
You'll need an editor.
Who will design the cover or typeset the pages?
Who will format the ebook?
If you're a business owner, consultant, or coach with a serious message and expertise to share, the team of experts at 1106 Design can guide you through the maze.
They've helped more than 1,000 authors create top-quality books and avoid the not-so-reputable self-publishing companies.
Learn more at 1106design.com.
Then call Michelle at 602-866-3226. 1106 Design.
Ned Thompson and Harry Shore started Thompson Shore in 1972, they believed employees with great character would make up the best company. They were right. They hired people who were not only experts in bookmaking, but who were obsessed with quality and delivering exceptional customer service. Almost 40 years later, Thompson Shore remains a 100% employee-owned company. Ned and Harry knew that successful customer projects are a direct result of empowered employees. We specialize in all books for large and small publishers. Creating beautiful and well-made books, we're dedicated to pleasing our customers by making the experience a good one from start to finish. The personal touch we have with our customers allows us to be innovative in solving their most difficult challenges. Our platform also ensures that we can remain flexible to meet our customers' unique needs and expectations. Our marketing kit can create buzz for your title, enhancing the promotion of your book during infancy. When you need to test the market to gauge your future sales, we can provide digitally printed books that will transition seamlessly into a larger offset run. From ebook to hard copy to delivery, our skillful customer service teams are at the ready to answer your most pressing question. At Thompson Shore, we know that making the highest quality books requires more than just best technologies. It requires superior customer service, professionalism to the trade, and commitment to environmental and social values. With these standards of excellence in place, you can be sure that we will always help you put your best book forward.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Coming up, you'll hear more about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
So Tom, with me is Tom Campbell. He's Vice President of Sales and Publishing for King Printing, based on the East Coast. And he's, one of our preferred printers that we enthusiastically refer people to. And that one of the things that people are stunned with, and this is one of the shell shocks that are coming up on the print on demand, that they can't get anything printed on a spine in some cases, especially with kiddo books. So Tom, can you talk about how many pages do you need to have a printable spine? Is there kind of a formula that our listeners can snag on?
Yeah, what it really comes down to is that you're looking at, with most children's books, hardcover or softcover, you need your spine to be printed on is 0.08. And that's figured out by the stock that you select. And I'm going to say either an 80-pound gloss or an 80-pound mat for that, for 36 to 40 pages. And then when you get into, say, a 100-pound stock, which is a heavier stock, a little more expensive, then you can get down in the 32 to 36 kind of page range. A lot of people, their children's books are either 16, 24, 28 kind of page counts. You just can't create a spine, and most of the printers that I know cannot either perfect bound or case bound those books. Now, if you go across and you want to do 3,000, you can do them in China, because they can do it all day long. And by the way, that also applies, because I get calls for this all the time. Can you do board books? And the answer is no. All board books are done in the Orient.
And that's where you have to go. And
place here.
Yeah. So I would. So if anyone is doing a board
32, book, 36, 40 type pages, and that's text. A lot of people say, "Well, do the end sheets count in a hardcover book?" The answer is no.
So just for our listeners, if you do have a kid's book, you want to have a board book, I'm just going to refer you to a fellow by the name of George Dick. And George is the head honcho at Four Color. Is it Four Color House? Is that what he called it? Yeah, Four Color House. And they're based in, his U.S. offices are in Kentucky. So you want to go there. And I actually have used George for some China, both Korea and China, and have been very happy. on how they work. But you're talking also where you're dealing with the domestic, like King Printing, that you're looking at having books maybe in hand in 3 weeks. That if you go to China, you're talking from, delivery acceptance to back to your door in 3 months. Korea is maybe 2 months. So just be aware of that. There's an overseas factor, which is okay. And sometimes you can get terrific deals. And a lot of these books that you see that are printed with like Tom was talking about, the foil printing on them, the covers and some of the other fancy stuff, that is done overseas. Often, because the cost is it's significantly less.
It's significantly less, and you've got almost all major children's books with any of the large publishers are all printed offshore, and and that's all I have to do is take a look at the copyright page, and it'll say printed in China, and that's fine. But again, I always go back, Judith, this is probably why you and I connect so well. I always go back to the point of what's the plan to sell these books,
Yes.
And otherwise you're going to have, books in boxes last better probably in Massachusetts than they do in Phoenix, or in Florida. I mean, eventually, after a couple of years of sitting there, particularly in Florida, down in the Miami area, you got waterlogged books. And
humidity doesn't like books, by the way, people. High humidity is not friendly to your book.
I've had a lot of people say, I took all the books out of the box and I put them on a table. And where are you? I'm at the equator. Okay, they're gonna take on a life of their own. So
well, they do. All of a sudden, you see the cover rise. All of a sudden, the cover is at 30 and 45 degrees from paper.
And if you put it into an acclimated area, it settles back down. Those are common comments I do have with a lot of customers on their books. Doesn't matter who your printer is that humidity and changes the physical nature of books, and leave them in the boxes until you sell them. But you better sell them and make money at it. I recently had a conversation with somebody who had a number of titles that didn't do well. And he was a publisher, and he just got done selling them at 10 cents on the dollar just to get his money back. So it's tough.
Well, if he can get his money back at 10 cents on the dollar, that's pretty exciting.
That's pretty exciting.
I have to tell you. Hey, Tom, I'm going to have a new title for you before the year's over.
Okay.
Yeah, it's another one of our mini guide series, and it's going to be the author's guide. We're tweaking the title, but it's the author's guide to creating $1 million speech on your book. So,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've been teaching that for years, and actually several people from my the Book Publishing Unplugged event I had in June said, "Why aren't you doing this book?" Because I'm now going to do a 2-day workshop in November on exactly how to do that and structure that. And I just thought, obviously, I need the book. So I'm writing it right now.
Good.
And putting it together.
Well, you know what? If you need it at a show in Boston and I have to pick you up at the airport and deliver books, that's one of the services we provide.
And I had to tell her when Tom did that, I was speaking back in Boston, and that my really hallmark book, the AuthorU book for platforms and stuff, and it was just rolling off the press. And Tom, met me at the hotel. We unboxed it, and then he took, when I was done doing the all-day workshop, he took me back to the airport, and I had some books. So, and we sold a lot. All right. So, Tom, the spine, the foreign, sometimes you need a foreign printer, so you want to look that over. Board books are going to have to go out of the United States. In doing that, and it's just not getting printed here where they used to be years ago. It's just not being done. And as far as I know, they're not even doing it in Mexico, which was a fallback place. where I was. Tom, would you talk about, people ask this all the time, because what's the difference, you and I know, but let's talk for our listeners about the difference between the gloss cover, the matte covers, which and the different formats, and then some of the treatments that might work better add treatments that might work better on one versus the other, or both. Can you get into that?
Sure. I mean, the standard book covers for softcover books obviously is a 10-point board or a 12-point board. There are heavier boards, but again, it comes down to what do you want to do commercially, and how much money do you want to spend? So, going heavier is not a good idea, because then it comes down to if we're running standard stock 10-point and 12-point for 90% of our customers, then you get the cost savings because we do that in bulk. If you pick some odd stuff, then we're going to have to buy minimums to get it for you. The other thing in stocks, different stocks, printing on certain types of stock. We've had people that have said, maybe print on Tyvek, or maybe print on some kind of a lucent type of stock. Those all take very special inks, and somebody, I walked away from a job because they wanted to go with a dust jacket, and it was a very special material, and I said, we're not going to be able to do it because the inks are you need a specialized printer, and I know the person that printed that book, and he had a huge problem. He should have never taken the job. And then when it comes to those types of materials, you have to understand that even though you want to be creative, you've got to be realistic in the manufacturing process. What can you put ink on, and how does it dry, or will it dry? So staying with standard materials is important. Then once you put your ink on whatever it is you're going to put it on, you then want to put a laminate on it. The two types of laminates that are typical today are a matte lam and a gloss lam. And depending upon your cover and kind of how you feel, and going back to the book.
Okay, Tom, we've got another quick break. Okay. Hold on a sec.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
The book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and a guide to partner with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand, and is a financial success, a bestseller. It's your choice. You choose. You need the book shepherd. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You don't need problems. You want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and the chaos. At times, she's had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher or by a publishing service provider, or sometimes even the author themselves. Judith Briles is the book shepherd. If you want to create a book with no regrets, give her a call today. 303-885-2207. That's 303-885-2207, or email her at judith@briles.com. By the way, Briles is spelled B-R-I-L-E-S. Follow Judith on Twitter at My Book Shepherd and on Facebook at The Book Shepherd.
One of the most important decisions you will ever make is your choice for printing your book. You are choosing a company which will be responsible for guiding you through the process and printing your book at a level of quality and detail that embraces your personal and creative needs. You want to choose a company that when your book finally arrives, you are delighted and ready to move on to the next level, and one that is customer focused. Choose King Printing Company and Addy Books to be that company that brings you to the next level. Go to kingprinting.com or call 978-458-2345 and ask for Tom Campbell.
At Total Printing Systems, customer service is our priority. We are located in Southern Illinois. Our employees have an average of 18 years experience and know that customer relationships are important to our continued success. We have been a short-run book printer for nearly 40 years and always stay at the forefront of technology. Our niche is from 1 to 5,000 copies. Today, we offer digital, black and white, and 4-color high-speed inkjet printing, a cost-effective way to introduce color into your short-run titles. We, of course, offer traditional offset printing as well. Bindery is done in-house, from adhesive case binding to PUR perfect binding to mechanical binding of all types, including side sewing. We provide warehousing, kitting, distribution, inventory management, a new print-on-demand facility, streaming browser-based ebooks, and bookstore. Call us at 1-800-465-5200 for a quote on your next book project. You can also visit our website at www.tps1.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right, so the things I want Tom to share with us, and Tom being Tom Campbell of King Printing, that I would like him to kind of just roll out. What are the questions that if you decide, okay, I'm going to do some smiling and dialing myself, and I'm going to reach out to some of the printers. And Tom, how many printers are there domestically in the U.S. right now?
Well, domestically in the U.S.,
that do books,
really,
that do books.
And there's roughly 40, 40.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's, people will go, oh, you're kidding me. Well, there's 5,000 that claim to do books or more, and every day, we've got new ones falling in and old ones falling out. But, when you call a printer and you want to do this yourself, number one, you gotta understand the specifications of your book, what you're looking for, and that includes all the, I call it the physical nature of the book, meaning that, the trim size, the paper, what the stock is, what the color text is going to be, the cover, everything about that book, so that you can provide a spec to the printer. Don't go to a printer and say, I've got these 15 variations, could you price them all out? And the answer is no. Once you figure out what you want, maybe 1 or 2 variations are fine. Mm-hmm. But the days of getting 15 variations and different stocks and everything else, it's just figure out what you want before you can lay it out, because it costs money to estimate these things. But you want to find out, too, if the person that you're talking to is the one that's going to do the complete job. And that means they're going to print it, they're going to proof it, they're going to provide you a proof, a physical proof. A lot of times people say, oh, I'll take a soft proof on it. Well, on a first-time book, you want to get a hard proof, and you want to look at it, because things happen, particularly in PDF formats. Yep. You get a hard proof, it goes out, you take a look at it, you take your time looking at it. But you want to find out if they're going to give you a proof. It's a hard proof. By the way, don't ask for a bound proof, because nobody does bound proofing. And then find out, are they going to print this thing? And are they going to bind it all in their location? many of the printers today have, the print capabilities, but they don't have the binding capabilities, meaning they're going to ship it out to somebody. And again, that comes down to, if it's bound incorrectly or if later on there's a problem with that book, it really turns into a goat rodeo with who's going to take responsibility for it. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, the printer should be the single point of responsibility for producing your book. They should stand by it, and they should fix whatever problems, because there will be problems. There isn't a single book printed that I can't go into a bookstore and say, well, this is not so good. Does it mean it's returnable? No. But, you're manufacturing a custom product every single day that's going to be different from title to title. So you want to make sure that the printer that you've selected is going to do the complete job. And I think most importantly,
Tom, let me add to that, because that if they are printing it, but the bindery is being done in another source, another company area, that means your cost is going to go up, most likely. Is that a safe assumption?
Oh, absolutely, okay. Because you got to ship it out. It's got to go to someplace else. They're going to mark it up. They're going to make money too. So if you're not using your own bindery, your costs are going to be higher.
All right. So now I'm going to come back. You said that there's roughly 40 printers. Are those full because those are, I think of a print. A lot of people don't think of printers as book manufacturers, but I do. That's book manufacturing. Right. But so when you say 40 printers, does that mean that everything is under one roof, or at least under one company, or are this include the people who also farming it out?
No, not at all, because it's, and those are people that know the book business. They know how to produce a book. So, a significant amount of their revenue is tied to book printing, and they've been in the business for many years. Mm-hmm. So, as you know, I know a lot of the people that are out there, and a lot of people say, well, I've talked to so-and-so, and I go, yeah, they're a fine company, mm-hmm. Or if they say I've talked to so-and-so, I go, I have no clue who that is. Mm-hmm. And, the other part of this deal is that a lot of customers will ask me, or potential customers, well, can you send me samples? And the answer is no. We used to do that 4 or 5 years ago, and send samples out, and the majority, we never got the work. But people got these mm-hmm. samples, they never returned them. And in today's environment, I'm always concerned, and we are concerned about the used book market. So mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't like to send out samples of other people's work. I'll be glad to send you pictures, or, mm-hmm. and the other part of this conversation, Judith, is, and I've done this with you, I provide references. You want to talk to people that know us, you can talk mm-hmm. to Judith Briles. Mm-hmm. You can talk to Nick. You can talk to many, many people out there who know who we are. John Kremer, Dan was, we were on Dan's list of preferred printers. So, you want to talk to people that have used the service. And so I tell people, get references. And then the other question is, you want to find out if they're going to have dedicated customer service people to help you follow that job all the way through the process. Someone you can either talk to or is going to email you where your book is, when it's going to be done, and how it's going to ship, and when it's going to ship. So all of those things are important, because most people, if you ask them, are they familiar with the printing process and dealing with a manufacturer? The answer is no. So you want to have somebody that's going to give you all the information and keep you informed.
All right. So you mentioned earlier boxing. So do you have usually, I've always kind of gone along with it. I have to tell you, what the printer boxes it up in, I just go along with it. But do I have a choice of asking about?
You have choices. You have choices, if you've got, if you want a certain number of books per box, or you want to have, some of my customers are getting up in age like me, and they will say, Tom,
we don't want 40-pound boxes.
I don't want a 50-pound box.
That's where I got my shoulder replacement from.
And so 25-pound boxes. A lot of people have the when the product's done, they have it shipped to their home, and so when they have it shipped to their home, if it's 500 or 1,000 books, they're going to be coming to you on a truck, and you're going to have a truck who's going to deliver to, if it's a residence, deliver to that residence, and probably have a lift gate. And all of those things add up to expense. If it's less than $500, you can usually ship it UPS. But again, depending upon who you are, almost all the large publishers, by the way, want their boxes to weigh 36 pounds or less. So, you can spec what you want, and you need to let your printer know that. And then if you're going to a special location, and you need special labels put on there, you got to let your printer know that. Those are kind of like the final things. You can get the books printed and everything else, but making sure that they arrive at your destination and you open them up and are delighted, that's all important too.
Yep. So I think this is all pre-work. This is part of your pre-work and talking to it and doing it. And a lot of times this is what, we do for our clients when, we get them, we reach out to Tom, we make these decisions on the papers. Now, I actually have samples of papers in my office, and we can look at them and all that. And I've done lots of books with Tom, so we can actually pull them off my shelves and say, okay, this is this quality, this is this style, this is this. And it always, for the visual, I'm such a visual person, it really does help. And put it together. But the bottom line is printing is essential. It's part of how it looks, how it feels, how it smells, and it's part of the book experience. You need a qualified, full service book manufacturer when you go beyond anything print on demand, and that's my 2 bits. We recommend King Printing. It's one of the ones. We have a few others we also recommend, but King Printing is one of them. He'll be at the AuthorU Extravaganza September 7th and 9th in Denver. Do come. And Tom, thank you for being with us again on AuthorU, Your Guide to Book Publishing.
Judith, thanks so much for having me, and say hi to John for me.
All right, everyone, happy writing, happy publishing. We'll be with you next week.
Thank you for being a part of Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Each week